YouTube. It's your homeboy Fat Rat Evolved. Let's walk into this thing together, man.
Three times this morning, I put my phone to my
I'm
ear.
gonna put you up on some things with these oldies too.
Dialed your number.
Some of y'all have no idea. But when you finish with me, man, you're gonna be abreast. Right? You're gonna be up to speed with this thing, man. So I wanna start the conversation off. Again, I'm your homeboy Fat Rat Evolve. Original Westside Playboy Gangster Crips. We gonna get on a journey of 1,000 miles, but you know that begins with one step. And I want to initiate this thing by saying navigation is my goal for this thing. I want to help some of y'all navigate the terrain of your lives as I can demonstrate to you through my own personal experiences the weight of some of the things you're carrying becomes lighter when I share it with you and we share the weight of our experiences together. You know, 1,000 pounds, right? Hard to lift for an individual. You get 10 homies on that, you're only lifting 100 pounds. You get 100 homies on that, you're only lifting 10 pounds. But it's still 1,000 pounds. So sharing the burden, sharing the responsibility, helping each other to navigate, to get through a thing, to be guided out of some of the darkness of our experiences into a light of understanding that helps us and enables us to actually build a life for ourselves, right? So that's my goal. It's a righteous and it's a good goal. It's a positive goal, but it's going to be uh, there's going to be some negativity in it because you have to know. Uh, if I say to you that I'm evolved, that I'm no longer in a former state, I've grown from, I've had experiences of formative growth. I have to demonstrate that to you, and there's no way to do that without giving you a history. So today I want to take the time to acknowledge a very special person who was a part of the history of me becoming Fat Rat. Uh, and this person, man, was so instrumental um, in helping me later on in life to see things a little more clearly. But it's like you're going through a thing without an understanding of what it is you're going through. Shout out to Cav Mac and the homies who specifically Cav Mac with all of that documentation of our history of the things we lived through and didn't properly understand. Beautiful coverage right there, brother. So for me, just some foundation. So I was born on the east side of Riverside, California, to Miss Olivia. We're gonna bring her into the fray, right? Moms, and she got to California because her father, my grandfather, was said to have been affiliated with Al Capone back in the days, and he got into some trouble. I guess they said the killing started out there, and he wanted to move his family out of the way of the violence. So he moved his children out to another family member in California, as I understand it. And as we go on with this thing, we'll clear up some of the things that I may mistake. Uh, but as it stands right now, my understanding of the history is that of my mother. And she hooked up with my father in Riverside, California, who's a jazz musician by the name of Fast Theus. Let me see something real quick, y'all. We're going to get Pops in the picture. Right there. So Pops was a saxophonist, and his parents moved from Louisiana to Watts, I think back in the 40s. And so my big mama and my big daddy lived right there off of 97th and Grandy. My mother lived in Riverside, California. So my father and my mother, I was the last of her 9 children. An only child between my mother and father, but we never saw ourselves as different as brothers and sisters. I have 2 sisters and 6 brothers on my mother's side, and then I have 3 sisters on my father's side. So that being said, and that's a big family. So there I was in the east side of Riverside, California, man, and it was experience that I'm gonna take you into as well. But this focus is my father wanting me to be with him after he and my mother decided that they wouldn't go any further together, and they respectfully shared the responsibility of taking care of me. So I'm in between Watts and Riverside at the time. But my Watts life, and I'm going to say this about Watts, man. If you understand an environment and what an environment can do, you take a tree in its early stages and you plant it in Africa, right? If it survives the climate of Africa, you can take that tree, uproot it, and plant it anywhere in the world, and it'll survive because of its ability to survive the harshness of the climate of Africa. Watts was a place like that. For me, for the brothers who growing up and coming up in Watts life, man, the Watts babies, as we used to call ourselves, Watts life prepared me for life in general. Coming up in Los Angeles, South Central Los Angeles, West Los Angeles, and all these different places, man, Compton, Long Beach. I've been through all of it. And I believe that what I experienced in Watts was the preparatory experience for going through the other ones. So in Watts, and I want to say that my uncle, my father's brother, Marshall Theus, was an original Crip over there off of 97th and Grandy. I'm trying to get some history on him. He transitioned some time ago up in Fresno, California. But when I was a little boy, man, they would tie the blue rags on my head and do little, dances with me and laugh and joke with me, you know what I mean? And, it was a very, my uncle had a high level of respect, man, and he was very well respected and accepted in Watts. But that was 97th and Grandy, and that was when I was visiting with my big mama and my big daddy. That was that experience. But my father lived on 106 in Wilmington. So when I would visit 106 in Wilmington, if you know anything about the area, at that time, and I'm talking about when my recollection, because I'm a 65 baby, so I'm over there, but as a baby, right? At about, I think it was maybe it was about 70, 71. I'm getting into 106 in Wilmington about 70, man, 71. I'm 5, 4, 5, 6 years old, something between 4 and 6 years old. And there was straight up Wilmington. And when you get to 103rd, there's 102nd Street Elementary. That's on the right side of the street. But when you on the left side of the street, it was a center. It was like a community center right there. And the Panthers had an operation where you would go in and you would get some literature and they would do a lecture and they would feed us and then we would go to school across the street. But it was a community thing. It wasn't just for the children going to school across the street. It was a whole like community event. And I remember that vividly. I vividly remember the effects of the Watts riot. I was actually born in the Watts riots. And I remember the effects of the Watts riots from as a little boy, man, because we used to go to Will Rogers Park when the pool was open. And we would walk down 103rd and the new homes right there, they had built some new homes and they were never occupied. They would just sit there. I'm just giving you kind of a layout. And me and my neighbor, Little Frenchie, he became Little Frenchie. They were a family that were from Louisiana as well, the Francis family. And we would walk up Wilmington, hit 103rd, and walk down 103rd all the way across Compton to get to Will Rogers Park. And on that walk, you would see the burned down buildings, the blight that were the effects of the Watts riots. It was still like that. I think it stayed like that over 10 or 15 years later, that some of those buildings that had been burned down in the riots hadn't recovered for a very long time. But I remember that, and us walking down and going across the tracks. I remember J.J. Newberry's, I believe it was one of the stores that was out on the right-hand side, and they would have the little shoes and stuff outside early on, man. And us going to Will Rogers Park regularly, and then we would go to the Watts Festival. But going backwards, let's go back. On 106 in Wilmington, that neighborhood was occupied by two major gangs. One of them was a Mexican gang called I think it was Watts Colonial, Wiegand Street, the Wiegand Streets, Mexicans. And then Watts Vadio Grape Street. Then you had the projects, the Crips in the projects, but you also had Watts Vadio Grape Street, not in the projects necessarily, but yeah, they was mixed in. So it was a black and Latino gang at the time. I remember that. I remember Watts life vividly, man. And that is what I want to talk about, because my sister got involved with one of the guys from Watts Vadio Grape Street named Philip Day, Lil Honcho from Grape Street. Hey man, this is very meaningful, and I really want y'all to hear me when I'm laying this out for you. So my sister, cutie pie, Philip, got at her, and she was interested in him. Philip had swag, and she begged him. She said, I'm not. She put a condition on messing with him. And what was the condition? It was her little brother. She said, just promise me you won't let my little brother get caught up in any of that stuff going on in that gang stuff y'all be doing. And I'm going to tell y'all, he was faithful to that. Philip Day didn't let me get off the porch. I tried. And he put it out there. And I remember all the original Watts Vadio Grape Street homies, man, that would be over my house, in the front of my house. And I can name a lot of them, man, he ended up becoming Benzo Albert Griffin, and the Brim brothers, and we could go on, man. Eugene, Blackie, Um, it'll come to me. Cedric McGill, the G's, man, they would be in front of my house every day, and I'm talking about. I mean, not every day, but like on the weekends, and it would be like a party in front of my house with the original grapes. But I couldn't. If I came outside, Philip would chase me back in the house. It was like that with him. He was like, "I told you I don't want you out here," and he was faithful to that, and that kept me in observation mode safely. The only safety net I didn't have was with his brother, Kenny Crow. Rest in peace, man. Rest in peace to Kenny Crow, man. Kenny Day. Because he told me, and I remember when they was jumping, him and a Mexican, Grape Street, was jumping in a brother from Grape Street. Right there, you go down, and it's Barney's Park right there. And then across from Barney's Park, before you go across to Barney's Park, there's like a pool hall was right there, but behind the pool hall there was like an apartment building, and behind that apartment building there was like a little area back there, and you could be right there looking at that area, or you could be on the fence, the other side of that fence, watching. You could see that area, and there used to be a little field right there in between the Francis's house and this building that was the pool hall. It was a building right there, and I think it was S.A. Night Owl, and Kenny Crow was jumping in. I don't want to say the guy's name because other things have happened, but they was jumping him in, and I was on the other side of the fence with Frenchie looking at the jump in. And Kenny Crow looked at me and said, "I don't give a damn what Philip talking about. When I catch you, you gonna be from Gray." And I was like, "You ain't gonna catch me." You know what I'm saying? But it was, it was one of them things, man. We were all in harmony with each other, man. To be honest, man, it really was like on that side, it was everybody knew each other. It was a lot of things that went on, man. A lot of violence went on, man. We talking about being on Wilmington and up and down Wilmington. I'm talking about our house literally faced Wilmington on 106. So, right up and down the street, Martin Luther King Hospital, MLK was right down, I think 100 and, I don't want to misstate it, but by Carver, because you cross over Imperial. And when you cross over Imperial, you go down a little ways on your right-hand side. It's Martin Luther King Hospital. So the ambulance was constantly running back and forth. And you knew back then in Watts, man, that the police was killing black people. You knew that. It was like a war between black people and the police back then. And as you go forward, you come to find out that some of that stuff was fallout from the Watts riots. Still happening, But yeah, man. So Watts life was really a trial, man. It was hard, man. Even though I had a blanket, it was hard, man. Because everybody that I remember was kind of like, it was almost like everybody was testing everybody. Like it was always that. You always getting tried, right? And I remember failing a test with I was a little later. I was about 8. We were about 8 or 9 years old before we was 10 years old, because they had started 2 younger gangs in Watts at the time. It was the ESK was the East Side Kids, and it was the Baby Lokes. And I remember when that started, and there was some teams of those 2 little gangs running around recruiting all the young dudes, right? And Philip couldn't control that. He didn't have no control over that. So I remember I got confronted one day in front of Barney's Park. I got confronted one day by one of the dudes who started ESK. And he was like, your ass gonna join ESK. And I was intimidated, right? And I just didn't say nothing. We ain't 10 years old, man. We not 10 years. We not We got to be 8 years old or something like that, man. And but I'm bigger than him, right? And my little partner, he didn't never join it because his big brothers and them had his back, so they didn't really bother him with that. You know, all I had was my sisters, and they wasn't in that, and most of the time they weren't there. They would be over with my big mama on 97. So I was like, I ain't say nothing. You know, he wolfed like, nigga, you gonna join ESK? And I'm like, just standing there, right? So we had, I think we had bigger, like they had big brothers next door to me. And my partner was my age, but his big brothers was involved in all of the WAS activities, right? So, and his name was Frenchie, Daryl at the time. So Daryl went and told one of our big brothers, Howie, man. I think Howie was from, I want to say he was from Bishop, because I didn't understand that relationship right there where the bishops wasn't the Bloods and all of those politics. I didn't understand all of that. I was a child. But I want to say Howie was from Bishops. He lived over there off of 99th, past Compton, but not, yeah, he lived over there off of 99th in Compton. Not Zamora. Yeah, down that way. Anyway, it was little apartments about over there. But he used to always be next door. And he was like, Howie might have been 18 at the time. He 10 years older than us. But he a G. You know, East Side, watch dude, man. Serious dude, right? So Daryl told Howie what happened that day about me being confronted to join the East Side Kids, and Daryl told him, man, he let that dude talk crazy to him and he didn't do nothing. And Howie looked at me, and he looked at Daryl, and he looked back at me. He said, listen to me, man. It's a look he had on his face. He said, listen to me, man. The next time you see that nigga, this is, if you don't kick his ass, the next time I see you, I'm going to kick your ass. And that was it. He left it at that. Now, I knew he was serious, but he was trying to bring me up, right, in a way. These things was going on that Philip wasn't aware of these things, and I didn't go tell him. You know what I mean? I wasn't never trying to report nothing to him to keep. I wanted in, actually, but I couldn't get in. So, long story short, man, we was walking one day on our way to up Wilmington past Barney's, and here comes the little brother and about two of his partners, and it's me and Daryl again. And Daryl is starting to laugh. He's like, oh, And I'm like, yeah, I got him. I got my mind made up already, though. Nobody knows what's on my mind. My mind is made up. So we walk up, and it's the same script. Like today is your day. You know what I mean? He talking this shit. You gonna join these Eastside Kids, right? And but he's saying it before he got to us. By the time he got to us, I took off on him. And guess what? He ran. And I chased him. And I couldn't catch him. We ran around Santa Ana. We ran around and ran down the street. We got all the way. I chased him all the way to Grape. And then I couldn't catch him. So he was faster than me, but the other dudes who was with him, they just was standing there laughing like they didn't want the problem either. But I didn't get to whoop him or nothing, but I took off on him. I swung on him and he ducked and took off running. That forever changed my life, man. That experience right there forever changed my life, because it would be moments in the future of my life that would happen similar to that. So that's one of my war stories as a young tyke growing up in Watch Life, baby, Watch Baby Life, man. So, and then don't let me fast forward though, because I'm not gonna stay on this for very long, but I definitely want to cover this and teach you and show you how the God works. This is profound. So, I done went through all this life of gang banging, man. Right? I mean, I had a serious tour as a gang enforcer, man, for my hood, my turf. And that turf and hood thing, y'all know what that's about, man. I'm not tripping off that, but I do want to be politically correct. So I put in a lot of work for my turf. It's a known fact what my level of activity was as a Playboy gangster. And I always tell, my homies when I'm talking to them and we clowning, I say, the enemy always knew me better than y'all. Because what I had for them, I never would bring to you. I was one of those type. It wasn't just a free for all. Everybody could get it, and even my homies. And I had homies who were like that. I was never one of those type of guys. I would give you a pass. If you got on my nerves, I would find some kind of way to avoid that because I believed in strengthening and building and protecting my turf, my set, more so than the people who were generally around me. So I'm just saying that to say, I was a different type of guy when it came to that thing, man, So I done went through this whole life of banging, man, right? I done transitioned from banging, to having the sack, right? Moving the weight, right? And I'm gonna take y'all through all of that too. But I want to get to something because it got in my evolution. It had gotten to a point where I experienced a betrayal within my circle over some money. And money was never that important to me. I mean, I'm a hustler. I went after the bag, but it was never that I would compromise you for it, right? I wasn't after what you had. I was never him. I celebrated my homies who knew what they was doing in chasing paper and learned from them. Because, a lot of my life, and I was in jail. I was in, if I wasn't in juvenile hall, I was in fire camp. If I wasn't in fire camp, I was in YA. If I wasn't in YA, I was in prison. And I had short tours because, when you getting down like how we did it, you really didn't care. You tried to get away with what you was doing, but you wasn't going to let the fact that it could expose you to some prison time stop you from doing it. That's the insanity, right? So, fast forward. I'm sitting in the Riverside County Jail. Because, as I say, I was back and forth my entire life. And I used to bring them prices that I had access to in L.A. down to Riverside and really support, the game down there. It was really bad. So I'm sitting in the county jail fighting some drug charges. I'm about to put 12 in the box. I'm going to trial. Right? Because my logic is, how can you convict me on charges where I'm sitting out front of a place and you got people inside the place and you go in there and you find stuff and you come outside and put it on me. It was really crazy. So, that was the time I'm like, I'm going to put these in a box. At that time, my family was in peril while I was inside dealing with that time. It was some circumstances with my personal family, my wife and, my children were in peril because they didn't have certain things that I needed them to have, and it was a bad situation. I was like, man, this is bad. I got to get out of this situation, right? So I'm praying on this one, man. You know what? That's it. I decided I shouldn't be in a situation like this, right? Knowing what I know, some of the people that I know, it's not working. conference call. Okay, let me finish this. So it's not working. So I decided, man, I took an oath with the God. I was like, man, let me help me with this situation. I don't believe in spookism. I need to get out of this situation, and I'm taking an oath. I'll never, kill no one who's not been ordered to be killed. I'll never sell any more drugs to our people, etc. I'm gonna make this transition. And we went to trial, and we had a mistrial. So they came back. I had been sitting in there dealing with the trial with no bail for about 10 months. So my lawyer comes back that following day when we were supposed to be having a mistrial because of some of the claims that the narcotics agency were making were just completely false and unfounded. So we thought that we were going to file a motion for either a mistrial or a dismissal. So when I came back to court, my lawyer was like, listen, man, I got some good news and I got some bad news. I said, what's the good news? He said, which one you want first? I said, give me the bad news. He said, they're offering you 16 months, which is basically time served. They're going to bypass your strike and offer you 16 months time served, but you got to take that case. And I never had that particular type of drug in my case. I never had that. It didn't matter. There's no way for me to get out of life with a clean record. So I was like, and that's the bad news. He's like, yeah. I said, so what's the good news? He said, the good news is they're offering you 16 months. It was the same news. So I said, yeah, let's take it. He said, you're going to have to go get a CDC number. And I said, okay, let's do that. So we took the plea, and I was coming home. But I had to go to Delano prison to get another CDC number because I had given back my D number, my E number, and I believe my K number. And I think they ended up giving me a P number. It was my fourth prison number. And so here I am I'm low custody, man. Shout out to the homie Popeye 87, man. I'm low custody, man. So we're in a minimum support facility. So we like on the 1 yard. So when I had a hearing coming up in a couple of days, and it was going to be a parole hearing where they were going to give me a number and give me a parole date. So the day that happened, I'm being escorted through a medical facility in Delano. And I go through the medical facility with the escort to make a right. We go down to a room on the right-hand side. They shackle me to a bench. I sit on the bench for about 30 minutes. Lady comes out and preps me for what's going to happen in the hearing. We go in, we have the hearing. I get another CDC number and a parole date for tomorrow. I'm like, I'm going home tomorrow. I'm like, yes. Yo, that's a special feeling, y'all. In light of all of the things that had gone on for that little time. And I'll take you through that at a certain time, but I'm trying to get to something. So now when we had the hearing, now I got to get escorted back. I'm on my way back down the hallway to walk into the medical facility. I walk by a brother and I go inside, and they take me over to the other side and put me on the bench, and they like, you got to wait here for your escort to go back over to the yard. So I'm sitting there. Guard comes in, CO comes in, and he's like, Theus. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Theus. He's like, okay, hold on a minute. I got to get some paperwork, and I'm going to escort you back over to your unit. I'm like, okay. So the guy who I had walked by in the medical facility was standing in the doorway now. He's like, Theus. He said, that's a unique name. And I'm like, there's a certain level of arrogance that goes along with the mindset of a gang member. And I'm like, I'm there. So I'm like, man, don't ask, like, I don't want nobody. He's like, are you, they say is your last name Theus? And he's asking me, and I'm like, do you know me, homie? And he's like, nah, I don't know if I know you. But I used to have a girlfriend, and her last name was Theus. and she lived in Watts. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, it is an uncommon name. He said, yeah, her name was Phyllis Theus. I mean, who am I talking to right now? And I looked at him, and he looked at me. And I said, my sister's name is Phyllis Theus. And I couldn't see him at first. It was a blur because I was towering over this brother. I'm almost twice this brother's size. Like, you know, we size each other up all the time, man. And I'm like, I wouldn't have no problem because I'm thinking about you asking me questions already. So I'm looking for the problem in it already, but I don't want a problem. I'm trying to go home tomorrow. So you asking me questions, but I looked at him and I said, Philip? And he said, yeah, I'm Philip Day. I said, yeah, I'm AJ, man. I'm Phyllis's little brother. And he looked at me. He had like a patch on his eye. So he only could see out of one eye. And he looked at me. I said, man, that's crazy. He said, this is the shit I had been trying to keep you out of all of your life, man. I never wanted to see you going through none of this shit. He had been going through this his entire life and was trying to navigate me through it. Like, don't do this because it leads to this. But I went and lived a whole nother type of life. I went right in 100% into the life that he was trying to keep me out of. And I asked the guards, can I go over there and hug that brother, man? I almost was in tears. Literally, I was almost in tears. Philip Day, man. Wow. So they denied me access to him, saying, nah, you got to be escorted, and we don't want, all of that. And so anyway, I just told him, man, listen, I know your name. Give me your CDC number. I'm going to tell my sister that I saw you. And I asked him, when you coming home? And he gave me a little information, and he was like, man, get in contact with my family and all that. If you want to catch up with me, I know where you live, and I know all your family, man. And I just said, man, I thank God for you, man. I told him, I said, man, I thank God for you, brother. Because had I not received that abrasive love that you gave me when I was little, man, I don't know if I would have been able to get through some of the madness I ended up going through, right? Some of the challenges and the confrontations I had to rise to. I don't know if I would have made it, right? But, yeah, man, 360 degrees. It came back full circle. At the point I had decided to exit gang life, I saw Philip Day, a divine reminder from the God, man. I was there the whole time. Look at that. And with that being said, y'all, that's what I wanted to share with y'all. I got some business I got to go attend to in addition to what we doing. So I want to tell y'all, man, know this, man. The only things that we have of value in this life, man, are going to be our good deeds. Remember that, man. Those are the only things that really count of value, what we do of good. The bad things we do, they're going to be channeled into a lower frequency of thought and dissipated into the darkness of nothingness. They're going to count for nothing. So strive to do good in every day that you have, brothers. Y'all have a blessed one, and sisters. All right. Peace.